So what can an injury to your wrist from kayaking teach you about kind of mental and emotional stress? Well, that's a really good question. I think I'm going to call this Lessons from the Lake, because I just seem to be getting lots of ideas while I'm out here. But recently I went on a trip from Bridgnorth in Shropshire down to Bewdley in Worcestershire, a 16-mile kayak trip down the River Severn with my mate Dan. It was amazing. Saturday, it was beautiful, sun was out, it was just great, it was lovely. I saw herons and all kinds of stuff. And after that, probably about 3 hours in, I started to get a pain in my right wrist. And it was only when I got home and thought about it that I realised the schoolboy error, that I'd overdone the activity and I'd got tendinopathy in my wrist. And it's the equivalent in some ways of saying, I think I'll run a marathon, having never run before. It just takes your tissues outside of the load that they can take, and it's going to cause you problems. And when I've been in my podiatry career, when we were doing musculoskeletal stuff, we used a methodology called zones of optimal stress, where we looked at the high stress and the low stress for people, and we basically showed them how to keep within those barriers. So low stress, too little stress is not good, too much stress is not good, and it was how to keep in those barriers between the two. And we all knew the triggers which could do that: overtraining. Injury would reduce the distance between the two. Being sedentary, being overweight, there were so many things. There were medications which did it, there were medical history, all these things would change that relationship between low and high stress. And the thing is, you can take that model and you can apply it to mental, emotional, psychological stress as well. We all have a tolerance between too little stress and too high stress, and too little stress isn't good. We need to have some level of stress, and there's actually a name for it. It's called good stress. It's eustress, EUSTRSS. Get my spelling on that mentally. And you know what your triggers are for taking you outside of those boundaries. You know if you have too little stress, it's not good, but you know if you have too much stress, it's not good. And you also know the triggers for when your tolerance between the two becomes really, really small. And that could be, your mood, it could be your level of sleep, it could be your nutrition, your fitness, it could be the people you hang around, your job, it could be, toxic people, whatever it is, which is going to alter the relationship between low and high stress. You are aware of those things. And sometimes it's as simple as changing one of those things, and it can make all the difference. We used to say that when we were treating people with musculoskeletal stuff, that you only had to change something by 1%, the stress levels, and you could improve, and that was all you needed to do. And it's the same with all those other things as well. So, I'm starting to drift around in circles now, as you can probably tell. So, have a think about that. Have a think about where your kind of emotional, your mental and your psychological stresses are, and think about how you can actually increase the gap between the two. What's a healthy level of stress for you? What's an unhealthy level of stress for you? And what do you maybe need to do about those things? And obviously, if you've got a challenge with that and you want to have a conversation with me about it, then come and find me. This is something which I have to work on a regular basis, and I'm more aware now of what stresses me and what causes me grief. I'm more aware now of what actually really kind of nourishes me and fills me up and makes those boundaries and the gap between the two absolutely huge. And I try and live those as much as possible. Being out here is one thing. This feels fantastic. This is wonderful. If you want to have a conversation about that, people screaming in the background, if you want to have a conversation about that, come and find me. See you later.